This week's episode of Still Untitled is brought to you by the Tested Premium community. The support of Tested Premium members is what allows us to do what we do on a daily and weekly basis, producing shows like Still Untitled, One Day Builds, and our gear reviews. Member support also lets us experiment with new premium shows available on Tested.com. This month, Adam and I build a Blade Runner blaster. Frank teaches us how to paint model kits, and Simone tests some new robot designs. Check out all of our premium content and learn how to be a member at tested.com/premium. Now on with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
New Year.
We
Holy
actually
cow.
spent the New Year's together.
Yes. Wow.
Did you get a new jacket, Norm?
And I've had this for a couple months.
Oh, that's your Arctic jacket?
It's my Arctic jacket.
It's totally
It's-
appropriate for San Francisco
because
weather
it's
right
very
now.
cold.
I should receive. I've got some travel coming up for a client.
Okay.
Into some colder climes.
Ooh.
Soon.
Ominous.
And I just purchased I think a Canada Goose, not an expedition, but
They have the store. They have a store at the mall.
oh, do they
They
really?
do, they do.
Oh, sorry, the mall. San Francisco has many. So what mall?
Westfield.
Westfield. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that is
We
definitely
have
the
3
mall.
malls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least,
Stonestown, Westfield.
We have more
Saramonte,
golf
kind of.
courses than we have malls,
Really?
Yeah.
Which
which is mind-boggling.
we
for
have more
49 square miles.
more golf courses than we have McDonald's, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's only 4.
For McDonald's?
Yeah, that I'm aware of.
Really?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
Yeah, okay.
you got a jacket.
I bought a Canada
Nice.
Goose jacket. Should arrive
great.
today,
Cool.
actually.
Well, it'd be really useful right now because it's cold.
It
You're
is
saying you didn't
around
get
the
one for
world.
Christmas?
No. We were just looking at it. My family bought me a Breville espresso machine for the shop.
Wow.
So hot and cold running espressos for everybody.
Really,
now.
it's the ultimate in luxury.
You know, it's really funny because I know you have one at home, and I actually
The espresso machine I have at home, by the way, and have we seen it on the podcast? No, we haven't
no,
tested.
no.
Anyway, it's a real Electra 2-boiler system, and it was in the house when we bought it.
so it's plugged
it
into
was-
your water.
It's literally plumbed into the house, and we were lucky enough to purchase a house where the previous owners had decided to do this.
Did you have to go take? So I got kind of into coffee a few years ago, and where I ended up with espresso was that on my budget, what I was spending, I should just give up on espresso and learn to brew really good coffee, which is what I ended up doing.
Okay.
The market for espresso machines has changed a lot since then, because back then you couldn't get a double boiler machine for less than like $1,500 or $2,000
At the least,
and
yeah.
now you're in a much more reasonable price frame for that.
And we're not Nespresso people. We're not pod.
No,
we're not pod
people.
people.
We're
No
not pod
pods.
people. No pods.
So we bought the house in 2010. It had this beautiful chrome Electra machine plumbed into it. We stared at that machine for 3 months.
It's a hard machine, just to be clear.
Well, it's not. It's actually not. But there's many pieces and parts to it. And if you search the internet for how to make the right cup of coffee, the noise to signal ratio on coffee is 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just everyone feels that there's only one method and everybody else is an idiot. So there's no way to vent or overlap advice in the coffee realm, as far as I can tell.
It's also complicated by the fact that a lot of times what people like in terms of coffee is what they grew up with. So if you grew up in a house where somebody had a percolator, then you're going to prefer horrible, nasty, burned percolator coffee. If you grew up in a house where somebody's making espresso in Australia, then you're going to be into espresso, and all like there's a local anyway. So
But the
did you
market
take
has
a class?
changed.
No, we didn't take a class. We actually, we live nearby Ritual Coffee here on Valencia. And we actually hired a Ritual barista to come to the house and sort of walk us through the whole machine.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was a lovely afternoon. They were a little flummoxed by being in my house. They were sweet about it. And ultimately, after 3 hours of like walking through all the different ways you can adjust this machine, we tried a bunch of different coffees and we came up with the way that we brew coffee. So I think everyone has just the way they do it on their machine.
I mean, some people like a long shot, some people like a pre-infusion. There's all sorts of stuff you can do.
Yeah.
But the machine you got for the shop, it's funny because I got the similar machine for my house for
You got the
Christmas.
850 and that's the 870 or something?
Yeah, Breville, mine's called the Infuser and yours the Barista Express.
Okay.
And the only difference I think is that yours is a grinder built in.
It does.
But it's super simple to use.
And Breville, Breville is Australian. I mean, they own the Australian espresso market. And if you don't know, in Australia, people don't drink brewed coffee. I mean, I'm sure they do now, but for the most part, everybody has an espresso machine in their house. And if you want an Americano, you can get an Americano. But that's pretty much what you get.
Yeah.
And when they started bringing out some of their high-end Australian machines here in 2012 or 2011, 2010, sometime like that, and it's completely changed like the low end of espresso in America. So you can get a good espresso machine.
The entry level.
Exactly.
So I got the I
Barista
totally lost
Express.
my train of the Barista Express. I'm going to mark this, but I want to build a rolling stand for the espresso machine in the shop. Of
Upgrades.
course,
Why would you not?
Which is why I bought the knockbox opener so I can put a drawer in. I also purchased. Wait, you'll love this. You know how in the coffee in the coffee shops they clean the milk jars with that thing that sprays?
Oh yeah, the upside down sprayer.
I bought one of those and a water pressure. I'm going to have a fully integrated water
So what are you
pressure
gonna do, just
system. I'm going to have a little sink, sink set up next to the coffee maker, so you can and
Workflow is really important.
Workflow is completely important.
You know, if you set that up with a tank, you can make it portable and take it to events and stuff.
No, that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be completely. All
Why
you got
would
to
you
do
not?
is plug it
Oh,
in.
my
You're going to have
goodness.
pressurized water and ready to go coffee with
feature
a
not
fridge
standard.
in the bottom. My only problem is that
Are you filtering the water?
San Francisco tap water is totally fine.
It's a little bit minerally. You know, you're gonna have to descale that thing. Wow.
New Year's.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You had a fabulous party this year.
I
I
did have
to
a
say.
fabulous party. My wife and I love to throw a New Year's party. Even on years when we're sick and don't throw a party, we have about 20 people over. But this year we had well over 100.
Wow, really?
We had
didn't feel like
we
that
had
many
over
people.
100 RSVPs, and that was the biggest crowd we've ever had at midnight.
Wow, really?
By far.
It felt a lot less packed this year for whatever reason.
So were you here? I can't remember.
The last one, I don't think you.
I think the last one was 2 years.
2 years ago was the
ago.
last big one. Yeah.
And that one got fatter in the middle, but was much lighter at midnight. And this one was, I think ours reached a peak at like 8 p.m. and then reached its stasis at like 10 and stayed that way until about 12:30.
Gina and I showed up at 10, and it was like a really nice size. There were people there. Everybody, I knew a ton of people that I could talk to. I met a bunch of interesting new people. It
Yeah,
was a
we had
lovely
people
party.
out of town. Frank was up here. Some new friends. Kenji went to the party.
With his very pregnant wife.
Yes. It was
I love
great.
seeing Kenji there. And Ryan Nagata came up, my spacesuit builder extraordinaire. So Ryan also, because he was in San Francisco, he came to the cave.
Had you never been before?
He has never been to the
Oh,
cave.
boy.
So we spent a bunch of time in here. And he said, I love Ryan. He plays it close to the vest and he goes, after he's been here for a little bit, he says, "Can I see your lightsaber cabinet?" I said, by all means. And we go over to the lightsaber.
Wait. He's a big Star Trek fan. And
Yes.
he wanted to see the lightsabers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And
Well, you
he
know, we
says,
wanted to
and
check
he
out.
goes to the lightsaber cabinet and Norm. He pulls out that and he pulls out this and he pulls out this and he says, "I made each of these. You bought them from me years ago on the RPF."
That's really fun.
And he said,
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is the best part. Like, this is done without a lathe.
What?
This is
It's
done-
aluminum?
Yeah, these are stacked washers and bits of rubber that he shaped using a drill and a file.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Right. Like, I mean, it's the triumph
Holy
of
cow.
engineering over the lack of proper tooling is, I mean, he's incredible.
That's amazing.
Industrious.
But I love that he said, "I've been wanting to tell you this for years." Like, I knew
That's a
you-
slow burn.
Yes, totally. He's like, "You were always the first one to respond whenever I put a lightsaber up for sale." And I was like, "Well, this one lost 3 of the horns. I need to send it back to you to get them replaced."
I had a lovely conversation with your mom.
My mom,
Yeah.
my mom is a force of nature. We went to Portland with her for Christmas with the in-laws, and then she stayed through the New Year's party. And the litany of my New Year's party was people coming up and going, "Dude, I love your mom."
Yeah. People are, who's that lady? She's so cool. That's Adam's mom. Of course she is.
She came up and grabbed me. She said, "Is your wife here? I would love to meet her." And I was like, I know what you do for a living. This is. But
My mom will get everyone's life story out of them in a minute and a half.
Like 4 minutes. Yeah, we were talking about we had an extended conversation about 3.5-year-olds laying down on the floor of the grocery store screaming, "Daddy, don't touch me." She's like, "Yeah, no, they all do that. It's what happens when they when they have free will but no self control, and it just eventually it implodes." So.
You pushed me. One of my sons once said.
Yeah, Daddy, stop touching me. You're hurting me on the floor of Target is the all-time worst.
Oh, my God.
I thought I was going to go to jail on that one. There's a real chance.
Oh, good Lord.
You said she had something to request of the podcast?
Did she get you
yes.
too?
No.
No, but my mom had a request for me, and you go ahead. What did she also buttonholed you.
She said, I really love the podcast, and I watch it every week. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who says that. But whenever someone says that, I know people watch it. I still go, oh God.
It's like it's like an instant replay. It's like, what have I said dumb in the last 6 months?
Yeah, no, I go through the same exact thing.
But yeah, so she said, I really love it, and it sounds. But why do you put those big dumb microphones in front of your face, especially Norm? And I said, I don't work there anymore. Ask your son.
So she came. This is one of those situations where we're driving in the car and my mom goes, is it possible to do your podcast with those microphones right in front of your face? And it's one of those things where someone asks you a question you realize is they're not actually asking you the root question. They're asking you a question that's halfway to the solution they've come up with in their heads.
Yes.
And I'm always flummoxed by that kind of question because I can hear the problem halfway being solved, but I also am aware that I haven't heard the original problem.
So this is one of those things that took me a really, really long time to realize when I was working with people who are I'm going to say creatives, but like people who do creative work for a living, right? Mm-hmm. When I was working at the magazine, it took me 2 or 3 years to realize you don't say, hey, I think we should change this typeface to be a little bit bigger, or the lettering needs to change on this headline.
What do you think about that typeface?
No.
Tell me.
That's not what you say either. You say, hey, I don't think this is legible. Can you adjust it? I don't think this is legible enough, or it doesn't pop from the background enough, or whatever.
Right, and
like that is, if you want a piece of advice and you have to work with people who make things, that is the single best thing I've ever learned that helped me be better at not making people angry at me all the time.
Well, and as a problem solver, if you come to me with a base problem, there's nothing I love more than being like, oh, great.
Yeah.
But if you come to me halfway to a solution, the silence you'll hear from me will be that I'm trying to use your question to figure out what problem you're attempting to solve because you haven't actually stated it to me. It's a fascinating bit of unpacking.
Yeah, it's like... Yeah, it was like I said, it was a revelation. I was 30 years old when I realized this. I was like, oh, right. I've been doing this wrong my entire life.
None of this is by way of paying out my mom.
Yeah,
my mom just likes seeing our beautiful faces.
At least yours and Norm's.
And
she didn't say anything about mine.
Well, I think it's because you're almost always right there, and she can see your face from the camera. And she said to me specifically, I really hate it when you're sitting in the middle.
Yeah, Norm.
That's why I get to sit in the middle.
She mentioned Norm's. So what I suggested is one of the things that we should have done a long time ago is build a ceiling boom that you just hang down and put the mics up here like you do on a radio station.
Oh, I can do that.
So that then they're kind of out of the way or off to the side a little bit. Because they don't have to be directly in front of us. It's just expedient to keep them out of the way when you're not
we can do that. We can do that as a build.
Yeah.
I can clear away a lot of this garbage up here.
Well, I mean, let's not get hasty.
What's that?
Don't be hasty. There's good stuff up there.
That would be a fun problem to solve.
And they can hear the sound changes as you move away from the mic.
Yeah, so the other question we get about this stuff, when your mom didn't ask this one, is why do we wear headphones? And it's specifically so that if you turn to talk to Norm, you learn which way to aim to turn your head.
I also, I've been on podcasts and I've been on the radio where people don't give you headphones. Sometimes the producer, the host likes that kind of energy. Mm-hmm. I really prefer the headphones because I love this cone of silence. Yeah. To me, it's a very intimate way to have a discussion, and I really dig it.
Well, and when you do a podcast like this where there's no actual off-camera producer listening to audio and stuff, making sure we're not picking up road noise or something, one of us has to wear headphones. So then everybody looks real weird if like two people aren't, one person is, and
indeed
anyway, mistakes are made. So yeah, behind the sausage making from courtesy of your mom.
So Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
That was we felt from our vantage point like that was the best party we've ever been lucky enough to throw. The crowd was phenomenal. It was super celebratory. I loved hearing people, meeting new people. That's my favorite thing, putting people together.
Yeah.
Totoro got hugs.
Totoro got lots of hugs.
My wife finally was like, "Hey, can I take a picture with Totoro? Or is that weird?" I was like, "I don't think anybody's gonna mind here. I think you're okay." And then that started a chain of post midnight people taking Totoro pictures.
Oh,
I think.
good.
So, yeah.
Oh, good. That was awesome. There's a couple of pieces of media I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you finish?
I finished.
Okay,
Oh,
so-
I did.
But hold on.
So
what?
before I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
It's Made in America.
Yeah, O.J. Simpson Made in
I
America.
haven't watched it yet.
One of the
So we talked about in our last podcast, our last one of the year, our favorite pieces of media, and Adam said in two well-respected media journalists rated this documentary series, ESPN documentary series, which is on iTunes and on Hulu.
Yep.
For people who want to watch it, as their favorite show of 2016.
And it's Made in America, not The People versus O.J.
That's
Simpson.
correct.
It's-
Which is also amazing. Ryan Murphy's The People versus O.J.
Yeah.
Simpson is astounding. And as a companion piece to Made in America, you get to really see how unbelievable the cast of The People versus O.J. Simpson really is. And I want to call out Sarah Paulson's Marcia Clark.
Oh, she's awesome.
Is astounding. I mean, these weird little vocal inflections that Marcia Clark has.
But you would want to watch Made in America first.
I think you would.
I think so. It is a long documentary series because it's
8 hours?
It's
9
8
hours?
hours.
It's 8 hours.
Over 3-hour episodes.
And it's confusing because it says part 1, part 2,
Yeah.
part 3, but each part has like interior
In chapters,
parts,
yep.
chapters.
Oh, okay.
So it's very. We actually screwed up, my wife and I, and we watched the last 3 hours first.
Oh, no.
No wonder.
No.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then we watched
But you
the.
know what happens.
Actually, no. The thing was it turned out to be an amazing way to watch it because we got to see some of the cultural fallout, and then we watched the origin story, and we actually watched. So we watched the last 3 hours, or like two. We watched. How do you say this? We watched everything but the final hour.
Right.
We watched like hours 6 and 7, but not 8.
Oh, you did the machete order.
Right. And then we watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we watched that last part again
yeah.
a second time. It is an amazing and incredible document. And I was talking to a friend of mine, Adrian Lacan, who's a wonderful documentary filmmaker, and she was saying that she was expressing opinions about certain documentaries that tend to show you misery in a way that she feels is exploitative, both to the subject and to our emotions.
And there are parts of this that are difficult to watch.
Well, and this is what I brought up to her as I said, look, I don't know how you feel about Made in America, but Made in America is not just about the O.J. Simpson trial. It's about our whole culture and how it looks at an African-American man, how it looks at celebrity, how it looks at football, how it looked at O.J., how he placed within our culture, how we placed him. It's an amazing deep dive into everything you can think of about the subject of O.J. Simpson and what it meant to us as a culture.
and the symbol that he represented. And I
Yes.
think contextually today, 20 years later, I think a lot of the viewers never experienced that. I mean, even
Like you're on the like I assume
I'm on
you
the
were what,
tail end.
like 8 when OJ murdered.
yeah, I mean,
OJ's wife was murdered.
when I saw when the trial was happening, I never got the
He
60s
murdered her.
context.
There's no mystery. There's no mystery.
Like
There's just none.
it's a completely different conversation.
It's not a spoiler.
Yeah.
Not a spoiler. But like the context of like what he meant to America as a
Yeah.
celebrity, as a football player, as a spokesperson,
What he meant to himself.
and all of that. You may get pieces of that, but this encapsulates it all in 8 hours, and then gives you about the story of L.A.
The story of Los Angeles, the story of racial relations in Los Angeles, and by extension in America. The police, the interviews they get. Mark Furman, the cop who was such a lightning rod during the trial,
Really?
sits down and talks for hours. Marcia Clark.
Wow.
I mean, I love everyone comes off. It's impressive how balanced the filmmakers tell the story, in what a balanced way they tell the story, because even the people you don't like come across as people. And that's not quite the best way to phrase that sentence.
But with human foibles and human, like you feel empathy for them because you feel like they made mistakes, and whether they admit that they made mistakes or not.
And you feel like they're trying to be honest. That's maybe the thing, is that sometimes you watch a documentary and you feel like this guy's putting one over on me. And this time you watch it, and Furman, who's a really complex and complicated dude, and I don't like that dude. I'll state that outright. But you know what? He's sitting there in this interview, and I can see that he's really trying to be honest, and he is delving, and the filmmakers are to be commended, and so is he for sitting there and trying to unpack this shit.
And actually, I think he's probably the most interesting character they got to interview, but the two jurors.
Dude, those two jurors.
Amazing.
The woman in yellow is astounding.
But the other woman, the younger woman as well.
The older woman?
Both.
Yeah.
It's
they have interviews with jurors that will absolutely knock your freaking socks off.
I can't imagine, like, because they were sequestered for like 9 months or something insane.
Yeah, it was almost a year.
One of the jurors, there's this great moment when they ask this younger juror, she's African American, and they say, "You watched a trial that took
260 days.
260
and it took you
days.
3 hours to come to. How is that justice?"
And she says,
and this is one of the rare moments in the documentary where you hear the interviewer come in,
and
because you normally don't get that.
Right, and he says, 260 days. How the hell can you come to a conclusion in 3 hours? And she said, how many days was it? And he says, 263. And she says,
262 nights. Alone, going back to the hotel room,
not being able to read any media,
just thinking about
not being able to talk to your family, not being able to do anything except go into that hotel room for the better part of a year. And it's not like that's an explanation. It's not like that's an explanation, but she's giving you she has a really impressive way of giving you an insight into how complicated it was for the jury.
Oh, I mean, I can't imagine. Like, you look at something like Survivor, where people are taken out on an island and dumped there away from family and friends for 20 days. And this is 262 nights is insane.
So this is it's a really important documentary to watch. It's really important, and it's really important because of the viewpoint it gave me about racial relations in America, and about the difference between how the white community reacted to OJ's acquittal and subsequent civil conviction, and then kidnapping conviction, which was far more complicated than I realized, and about how the black community, I mean, really, like that's perhaps the main pivot of the thing, is it's showing you the difference of the perception of OJ, white America and black America, how they looked at this one man and how he placed between those two.
And even though it is something that's real, it's a documentary. It doesn't feel real. It's like it's a once in a lifetime, once in a centuries type of story.
And so there's 3 things they use to tell. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No. In that it's like I was trying to think what celebrity, what person, what event could happen today that could have that magnitude in terms of how it's covered, the right time, the right person, and there's no one.
Well, it's like the Lindbergh baby or the Manson killings or something like that. There's,
right. It's what the thing uncovers about us, helps us see about ourselves. There's 3 ways in which they used to tell the story. They do news archival footage, which is by far the bulk of this production. Almost no narration.
No, I was trying to think about it, because no, it is.
It's archival footage. It's interview footage with many of the major players now.
Yeah, and when you think of a documentary and how a lot of documentaries are done, they interview their pool of people and they go for hours, and you have everyone they interview, typically in a documentary, tell the same, ask them the same questions,
right,
so they can pick pieces apart to tell the story. Here, it wasn't that, because everyone told their point, but you had you had Mark Furman, before he talked about his involvement, you had him talking about police.
Right.
And so they had input into the earlier parts of the story that were valuable, that then led to their involvement and gave you all the context you needed. And the story was completely, without narration, a full story.
Yeah, it really was. And they also, finally, the technique they use is dozens and dozens and dozens of drone shots of LA and the major places in LA. And I thought that the way the filmmakers used those long, slow shots, these pans, these turns, like they cover the LA riots and the terrible beating of Reginald Denny, and they have a drone shot of that intersection interspersed with footage of the beating. Oh, and this comes back around to me talking to Adrian, is I said, you don't like documentaries that manipulate you with misery. How did you feel about O.J. Simpson Made in America? Because I personally was watching this, and when they get to the Rodney King beating, which is actually a key moment in helping the audience understand race relations in Los Angeles and America, they show you the Rodney King beating over and over and over again. And I normally, left to my own devices, I will not watch this stuff because I find it way too upsetting. I understood the filmmakers were making a point, and I made a point with myself to follow them and watch what they were showing me, no matter how difficult it was, because I understood they were making a point. Yeah. And she said no, she felt like that was absolutely in service of helping to clarify a situation and a circumstance.
Well, there's a difference between melodrama and drama, right?
Yeah.
I really also like that at the end of the documentary, they didn't go and say, okay, this thing happened 20 years ago, and this is everything that built up in LA, and look, it's happening again. Like, they didn't need to explicitly say that. It was at the end, about the case and about O.J. Simpson, and the parallels that you can draw today, they're there, but they don't need to be explicitly said.
No, they don't. And in fact, post the denouement of O.J.'s final conviction for armed robbery and kidnapping.
This is the thing that happened years later in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah. Surreal.
13 years after the killing.
Yeah.
The filmmakers have this incredible choice to make, right? They understand the big beats, and I can see you're going to tell the O.J. story. Your big beats are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But you finish your last big beat, which is O.J. gets convicted. What do you do as your final? I think
the National Lampoon ending, and now Donald Trump's. Yeah.
I think that the like five. I think there's like 5 little codas from some of their interviews that they choose to put in order before the credits. And I think that the choice they made was fascinating and amazing. I was like, can't gush enough about how incredible I thought this was. My wife and I watched it over about a week, and we kept on rewatching large chunks of it. We'd go back to the beginning of an episode we were in the middle of, and we never found it repetitive. We just found it endlessly amazing.
Yeah. It was incredible.
So this is O.J. Simpson Made in America, not People versus O.J. Simpson, which also was good, but
which
not the
is
same.
Ryan Murphy's People versus is talk about melodrama. It's much more melodrama, but man, it's great.
Cool. Can we talk about La La Land?
Yes, that was what I was going to segue to next.
So
I don't mean to give a song and dance to.
Oh my goodness.
It's a completely different kind of LA movie. Gina and I took advantage of a babysitter on New Year's and went to a movie before we came to the party.
Oh, lovely.
So we literally rolled from Alamo and then walked over and
that's so cool.
It was we had like a nice dinner beforehand, and then it was awesome. And that movie, I realized some things about myself in musicals that I hadn't understood before. So we talked about it a little bit last week, right? I thought it was a phenomenal, lovely. It's not phenomenal. It's a lovely movie, right?
I thought it was phenomenal. I really blew my mind.
I didn't think you could make that kind of movie anymore. And I realized that I don't like it. It's much more of a 60s style musical wherein there's a plot and there's things that happen, and there just happens to be musical numbers interspersed throughout, than the more modern, Moulin Rouge or Les Mis Broadway musical jammed onto a film.
Right.
And I definitely like the former more than the latter. And I never realized that before.
Well, what's funny is that the former is more mannerist.
I don't know what mannerist is.
What's that?
What's mannerist?
So mannerist is like it's playing the musical almost as a formal exercise. I am now going to sing instead of we're all agreeing we're in this world where people sing. It's like Moulin Rouge is like, well, everyone's going to sing. That's just what's going to happen.
This is a world where everybody sings.
And you're in this campy, awesome, crazy. And I agree with you. And it's actually a lot more like Singing in the Rain, which I think was one of its biggest influences. Yeah. Vincent Minnelli and all of those films.
So here comes Norm.
I really liked it. I didn't love it.
You didn't love it?
I
thought you were such a hopeless romantic.
And
I thought you would absolutely love it.
I felt pandered to.
So
endlessly pandered to.
Interesting.
And I didn't think it hit all its notes. I mean, musically, I did. I thought it did. I think there's a scene where they take the time to put on the shoes and then have their first dance at Griffin's Park. And I think that's just a little too drawn out. But there's some, like when she does the audition song, incredible.
Dude, yeah.
The finale piece, I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
It's your heart's right there and it pulls all those strings. And as a love letter to a type of cinema, I still think The Artist does it better.
You know, I have never seen The Artist.
Neither have
I ought to. I have a screener for it from years ago.
So there's a couple of things that I loved. I loved the cinematography where they used that kind of a technique where dropping the lights down on everything except for the one thing you're supposed to be paying attention to. It's a very kind of musically thing, but they integrated that with modern technology in a really interesting way. The gimbal shot at the beginning on that opening dance number on the side of the freeway was unbelievable because I think that was one. I wasn't paying attention until it was too late to say, but it seemed like it was one long take.
Yeah,
they had a few
there were places they could cheat a cut.
Yes,
but
exactly.
It was supposed to be one long take.
Right. It felt like a long take.
It's an achievement.
Yeah.
Like you can't make that movie. Like it's one of those things you think you can't make a movie like that today. And then they did.
When they did, and they did it pretty cheaply, if I remember correctly.
30 mil.
Right.
Which, I mean, look, it's, yeah. I was so interested in that. I walked out of the theater and was like, how much did that movie cost to make? It's like a $5 million thing that they used their own money and didn't do anything else for. And it was 30 million.
30 million is almost for free in Hollywood.
Well,
I mean, that's not quite, but it's really, really inexpensive for a movie starring Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone.
Well, it's John Waters years ago wrote an essay about how it's impossible to get an $8 million movie made today.
Yeah.
The thing that I realized is that the meta awareness of the people that created that film of what audiences expect at specific moments and because of specific setups and as the audience's
narratively
maturity, well, even cinematically too. So let's see, there was the shot where they both walked out of the club and here's a perfect example.
Yeah,
but even
they
better
walk
example
away from each other and then
spoilers.
Minor
spoilers.
So there's a scene in the trailer where she sees him getting sacked. She walks into this club, she sees him getting sacked, and then they walk up and in the trailer they kiss. And you're like, oh, this is that. It's that kind of movie. I love that kind of movie. In the actual film, they showed a different take of that action, and it was your expectation is so strong. Oh, this is the meet cute, right? They're going to come up, they're going to meet each other. And then we're going to see a love story that goes on for the next hour and a half, and it doesn't happen. And like that kind of playing with expectations is something that like Joss Whedon does really well in the Avengers movies. And it's so neat to see that happening in other places because it really rewards you for paying attention in a way that a lot of modern media kind of doesn't, which I like. I really liked the movie a lot. I thought it was great.
I also loved the tension of that last song. And so bigger spoiler, the end of the film is Ryan Gosling in his club playing a song that Emma Watson is in the audience watching with her husband. And
future Emma Watson, or not Emma Stone.
Emma Stone, excuse me. Emma Watson, Emma Stone. My apologies.
Different movie.
Emma Stone. And I watched that and thought, oh, this is him going through all of his regrets and the things he wished he'd done differently. And then I realized, oh, no. That's right. He's playing the song, but he's communicating something to her, so it's her point of view.
I thought they were both seeing their own point of view.
I
thought they were seeing if the sacrifice was flipped.
And I think that it can be viewed in both of those ways, but I feel like dramatically it's mostly her point of view because that tells you he's communicating something to her. Yeah. If it's his point of view, it's just masturbatory because you're just seeing him play a song for himself. But she's in the audience watching, and dramatically it makes narratively much more sense if you're seeing how she thinks everything could have gone differently.
And you know what? I think I don't remember how it opens. It definitely closes, pulling it back from her eyes in the theater. So,
for that reason, I liked it more than 500 Days of Summer.
That's what I was going to say.
Which is the parallel.
It could have the other side of this could have been 500 Days of Summer.
And I thought 500 Days of Summer was sweet, but I thought the script was terrible. Actually, I thought a lot of the dialogue was like first draft dialogue. It felt like to me.
It was trying to be that teen.
I don't mean to say the
romance
script was
movie.
terrible. I really enjoyed 500 Days of Summer. There were just a bunch of narrative beats in there. I thought, oh, you really could have spent some time and made that a little better.
And that's another way to say that sometimes we want to like a movie so much and we like so many parts of a movie so much that the things that make it not perfect stick with us.
It's true. I had a problem with the mix in the theater I saw La La Land in.
Yes.
I thought that the vocal mix, there's a choice you make in a musical like that. Is the song in the world, or is the song produced to be a pop song or in its own space? And they did more of the latter, and it, frankly, in the opening scene, I couldn't hear the voices
I
of
agree.
the singers.
I agree.
It really drove me crazy.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was a problem with the theater too.
That's probably the center channel busted in the theater.
Well, so
the
most of the
Draft House
people
was fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You heard them just fine?
So I had the worst seat in one of the small upstairs theaters. I was on the first row, all the way on the far side from the entrance. But I wasn't in the sweet spot, but it sounded okay to me.
All right.
One final piece of media, because we had last week off.
You should go see La La Land.
You should go. I think
Yeah,
people
I
should
think
go
everybody
see
should
La
see
La
La La
Land.
Land. Nothing we've said will spoil this movie for you.
Yeah, and it's
really, really lovely. And more than that, in an age where everything is a franchise, is a remake, is a reboot, this is an original idea, an original movie that we need more of. The world would be better if more movies were trying to cast their net as wide as La La Land does.
I said last week that it looked like the kind of thing that Neil Patrick Harris should have been in, which was completely wrong. Couldn't have been more. Like my thought was, it's an Anna Kendrick, Neil Patrick Harris movie that other people are in. I was wrong. I apologize.
The other thing I want to give a recommendation to, watch all of The Crown.
Oh.
Netflix's The Crown, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed the hell out
Really?
of it.
Okay.
Corgis.
No, this is set in the 40s, 50s. This is post-war. This is as
That's Queen Elizabeth, right?
is ascending. Yeah.
And who plays Queen Elizabeth?
Claire Foy, I want to say. The best casting. There are two amazing castings. One, John Lithgow plays Winston Churchill.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Like crazy
And
prosthetics in the whole thing.
it's a whole transformation.
Oh boy! Okay.
And I've been trying to do my own Churchill the whole week because after you watch him, like, I can do a Churchill.
Well, you know that Gary Oldman also just played him in a movie that they just finished.
interesting.
You got to
Really?
look up. You got to Google.
Is it
Gary
War Magician
Oldman
or something?
It's you got to look up Gary Oldman. Hold on, I'm going to show
Gary
it to you
Oldman
now.
Churchill. And then the other casting is Matt Smith, who played one of the Doctor Who's as Prince Philip.
Gary
and that's
Oldman
amazing casting. It's written by Peter Morgan, who's a screenwriter and playwright, and he wrote The Queen,
Oh, okay.
Which is wonderful.
which is a wonderful, wonderful film.
That's the Helen Mirren one.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's actually he actually wrote a bunch of movies. He did The Queen is actually part of his Tony Blair trilogy. So he had
that's
oh,
Gary.
that's amazing.
cow.
That's
Oh,
much better than John Lithgow and visually.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a real transformation.
That's Gary Oldman.
John Lithgow still looks a little like John Lithgow.
I mean,
I love John Lithgow.
So it's Peter Morgan.
when you said John Lithgow, in my head I was thinking John Cleese, and I was like, "That's incredible."
No, John Lithgow's even more incredible.
I
He's the
know.
third rock from the sun.
Well, but
and
he's got the right head shape, but he just needs more jowls.
it's very jolly.
Okay.
And you got to watch I'd say watch The Queen again.
Okay.
And then watch The Crown. There's also, if you have HBO, there's The Special Relationship, which is Tony Blair and President Clinton.
Right.
And it's part of that Tony Blair trilogy. It's like this Peter Morgan cinematic universe,
Oh, fascinating.
aka history.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I also want to say a shout out. A lot of splash was made in the last couple of weeks by the new Blade Runner trailer, which is really
I saw it
beautiful
for
and
the
really
first time.
exciting.
Yeah.
And last night, in preparation for the Blade Runner coming up, my wife and I watched Sicario, which I have seen.
Oh, the
And-
Jessica Chastain.
No, that
No.
Sicario is Emily Blunt.
Oh, Emily Blunt. Okay, sorry.
Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro, and it's a freaking masterpiece.
is this the Iraq thing or the drug?
This
drug
is the drug war thing.
Okay.
It's incredible
Really?
and really, really
Yep.
beautiful.
Yep.
Yep.
Eminently rewatchable. One of those intense sequences ever, both in the cold open and also in like first third of the movie.
Dude, that
first third,
that's unbelievable.
The
Just
car,
Okay.
yeah.
astounding
Political
set of
thriller.
sequences.
His movies leave you. He punches you in the gut right at the end.
That's right for
But
Blade Runner.
There's a couple things that I really liked, and there's a connection to the OJ Made in America documentary, which is Denis Villeneuve, the director of Sicario and the new Blade Runner film, who also directed Arrival, loves shots of landscape. And upon the second watching of Sicario, I noticed that the way he covers the car chases is very animalistic. You see the line of 5 SUVs moving, and because of the way he's shooting it from so far above, you actually feel like you're looking at colonies and pack behavior. And this is all completely to his point. And then the landscape itself has a physicality to it. He's showing you, I mean, a good portion of the movie takes place in El Paso and Juarez, Mexico, which are 2 cities divided by which is one city bifurcated by a border.
Yeah.
And one city super bifurcated because Juarez doesn't look anything like El Paso, and the difference is really stark. And this starkness is part of the plot of the film. Really wonderful.
And the team that he had for Sicario, Roger Deakins, cinematographer, and also the composer, same team for Blade Runner. The score, also incredible.
The score is really incredible, and he uses this musical motif in Sicario of this like bump, bump, bump. I mean, it's
like the Inception thing, or like just a underlying massive amount of bass.
It's the main theme during a bunch of this stuff, and it feels like a heartbeat, and it feels like an earthquake, and it's this. There's not much to it. It's just this driving force that pushes the narrative.
Yeah.
I need to see this.
Also, by the way, I had never thought of Benicio del Toro as a handsome man. Obviously he's a movie star, and movie stars, like, they're all handsomer than all the rest of us will ever be. But there's some shots in here you realize, oh my God, he actually looks almost exactly like Brad Pitt.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. When I saw The Usual Suspects for the first time, I was like, is that Brad Pitt? He's doing a crazy accent. He can't do that, right?
Well, then I was like, Benicio del Toro is a very handsome man. And my wife, Mrs. Don't Try This, she goes, yeah, I've been aware of that for a while.
New Year revelations.
New Year's revelations.
I saw Sing yesterday.
Sing. Oh,
the Illumination, the Despicable Me.
How is
it? It's really sweet and good. Like it's not good for little kids. Take your 6-year-old, 7-year-old.
Okay.
It's a musical. They have some really incredible musical medleys and a lot of really dumb jokes. Not too much fart humor.
Not too much fart humor?
No, it's no trolls.
No.
All right. Well, let us know if you enjoyed some media over the Hollandaise. And
the Hollandaise?
Nice.
Happy Hollandaise.
Did you? I did the thing the other day with the immersion. Do you know about the Hollandaise with the immersion blender? What?
No. You're
Save this.
emulsifying with the
Save
immersion blender?
Go. Yeah. Serious Eats. I can't leave this one hanging.
Okay.
People will be upset. Go to Serious Eats. They have a Kenji's Quick Hollandaise.
Oh.
You put the immersion blender in a cup that just barely fits it and pour your melted butter in while you're beating the eggs, and it's 2 minutes.
Wow.
No stirring.
Oh, I think I have an immersion blender.
If you don't, they're like $8. So go nuts.
Happy Hollandaise indeed.
Yes.
Happy Hollandaise, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.